common sense recap of the day's biggest stories. It's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC. Breaking news, WABC.
And joining us now here on Katz and Cosby, we have retired Command Sergeant Major Thomas Behrends. And of course, he is very familiar with the background of Governor Tim Walz, who is Kamala Harris's running mate, also in the same battalion. And Command Sergeant Major, thank you so much for joining us here on Katz and Cosby. First off, can you tell us again, because there are all these stories about the background of what happened with Tim Walz and how he left the unit, and then my understanding is you came in and have said, obviously, in your mind, that he knew he was going to Iraq and essentially abandoned his troops.
Correct. That is exactly what happened. He knew in March of 2005 that we were going to be going, and he decided that, Uncle Sam called, and I hung up the phone and said, "To hell with you! I got better things to do. I'm going to run for Congress, or I'm a coward and I don't want to go," or whatever reason that he had. But yeah, he pulled the plug and deserted his unit and his men.
And how do you know that too? You took over, right? I understand.
Correct. I got offered the position after about a month after he left, and so I know the whole story. I mean, I was in the battalion before that, and he pulled the plug, and I took the position and went to Iraq.
How long were you in Iraq, and how tough was that?
It was damn tough. I mean, we were there. We actually were gone for 22 and a half months from our families. We were in Iraq for 16 and a half. We were there when the surge hit, and, it was a good thing that we were there when we were, and, that the surge went on, and we ended up, staying longer, but it allowed us to try to make that country better when we were there. And, it sucked being extended, but, it was the right thing to do at the time. And we just drove on as soldiers and did our few more months in country and came home. And, we lost men and had a lot of people wounded, and, it was a pretty traumatic experience.
Absolutely. What did it do for morale? I understand, because he was leading the battalion and then suddenly they're about to go into battle. What does that do to the battalion?
Explain what a sergeant major is. As a lowly lieutenant, when you saw a guy with all the stripes, little diamond in the middle, I got to tell you, he got a lot of respect. Why don't you explain what a sergeant major really is?
And what it does also to the unit when suddenly he leaves.
It's very important.
Well, exactly. And that's the whole thing. When you're at that position, you're like the father figure. You're the wise man on top of the mountain at that point. And when you're gone, that'd be like the wise guy in the mountain. You find out that he's gone and he died or something. I mean, it's traumatic to the unit. You're at that position. The smallest unit you're in charge of is a battalion, which is 500 people, give or take a few, and 500 soldiers. They have two sets of parents, 1,000 parents out there, and brothers and sisters that are all there relying on you to be the one that leads the people, leads the men and women, and trains them, and tries to do whatever they can to get them all home, from combat. I mean, that's the sad part about combat. I mean, you probably will lose somebody, but you want it to be as few as possible. And when that person leaves, it's a huge vacuum. It's like the vacuum Iraq had when we left and ISIS took it over. I mean, that vacuum is there, and it's got to be filled by somebody. And the way he left, there was no handoff of the baton to me. There was no cake cutting or retirement ceremony. He slithered out the door and literally just was gone. He never told me the units are all trained to this capability. The strength is this, anything. He was just gone. I never talked to him after that. He just literally disappeared like a wisp of smoke and was gone.
Wow. Everybody, we are talking to retired Command Sergeant Major Thomas Behrends, in the same battalion as Tim Walz, Governor Tim Walz, who is the running mate to Kamala Harris. Vito.
Yeah, Tom, first of all, thank you very much for your service to our nation. It's people like you that keep this country the greatest in the history of the world. So thank you. I'm curious, what was it then and what is it now, the fallout of all those who, when he left, what was the response of the people in the unit? Do they feel as strongly today as they did 20 or so years ago?
Oh, it's been great as far as meeting patriotic people, and thank you for being one of the people, being some of the people that were worth fighting for. I mean, this has brought an awful lot of patriotism out in this country. Just realizing that, doing something this to a military unit is wrong, and you should be punished for it. You should not be elected because of it, because you're not a leader when you do that. And the soldiers that are out there that served, they're coming out of the woodwork. The National Guard literally has been called out against Tim Walz. He's the governor of Minnesota. He's the guy, that's commander in chief of those troops. But those troops are called out against him right now. They're 99% of them are all absolutely against him. They're like, what you did is absolutely wrong. You're stolen valor. You're calling yourself a retired command sergeant major, and you're not. You said you carried weapons of war. You didn't. You're trying to ride on the coattails of the service that we did honorably. And, go pound sand somewhere. You literally should be tarred and feathered and dragged through the streets of New York City.
Wow.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for your important
service.
perspective. And it's important to know the background of this person who...
Why does he have to be dragged through the streets of New York City? Can't they drag him through the streets of...
other places?
Minneapolis?
Wisconsin? Yeah, exactly.
Minnesota and Nebraska don't want him back either. I guess we could send him down to Gitmo. That'd be a good place.
Wow. Well, thank you very much,
so much,
Command Sergeant Major. Thank you very much.